So we'll get John McMullen's take here, our Eagles insider, 973ESPN.com. For the preseason finale, Eagles at the Jets at MetLife. John, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Pete?
Good, very well, John. Are you going to be at the game tonight?
No.
I don't blame you.
Not at the game tonight live, but, it's more important to handle the Tom Brady stuff today.
Absolutely.
Than week four of the preseason. But, everybody's excited about Tim Tebow, Matt Barkley, so we have that to look forward to at least.
Absolutely. Let's start with Judge Berman's ruling today in Deflategate, nullifying Tom Brady's suspension. First, number one, John, was this a surprise to you?
A little bit. By the way he spoke, I always thought it was a chance that he would vacate the suspension. And, of course, as expected, the NFL would appeal, and they already have done that. So this is hardly the end of this story, unfortunately. But, the heavy-handedness of Roger Goodell is starting to pile up, because if you really go back all the way to the Ray Rice case, and whether you talk about that, whether you talk about Adrian Peterson, whether you talk about this case or even Bountygate for that matter, the NFL is starting to pile up the losses in court proceedings, and you have to look at the guy at the top. But unfortunately, not enough of the 32 owners have done that. And it's always a surprise to me, because this league continues to lack credibility, and it's not getting better. It's just getting worse.
Yeah, and I think going back to the Ray Rice case, I mean, if Roger Goodell wasn't forced out after that whole mess, I don't think he's going to get forced out after this whole mess. Does it really, John, just show that once again the legal system disagrees with how Roger Goodell handles being judge, jury, and executioner? Is this really an underlying issue, really more towards a bigger problem like you just alluded to?
Yeah, it's just another sign of a bigger problem. And remember, we always talk about this was collectively bargained by the players. So the fact that this was overturned is far greater than the average case that is just unfair, because the players agreed to these rules, and what the judge is saying is, even though you have this incredible amount of power, you're abusing that, and you're trying to push the envelope even further. And it really says something, and you would like to see the league learn from its mistakes, but they haven't done that to this point. And you see no evidence of realizing or admitting a potential mistake. And, a guy like Greg Hardy, he could see this today and immediately say, you know what, I can beat this in court. He could go in that direction if he would like. It creates problems that go far beyond this particular case. And, until the owners, who are in essence, Roger Goodell's bosses, decide that this guy is it's not prudent to move forward with him, I don't see any of this changing. And the problem is, it doesn't matter what the scandal is, Pete, and there's going to be one. We know from history there's going to be one at some point again. It doesn't matter what the scandal is. It doesn't matter what Roger Goodell rules. One side is going to be upset, and he lacks credibility, so nobody is going to accept it moving forward.
Right, they're just going to appeal it to a higher court. And I want to ask you, going back to the CBA in 2011, how important, I guess, how far down the list was Roger Goodell having absolute authority in suspensions and fines? Because I know that player safety was an issue for the NFLPA, eliminating two-a-days and all that stuff, and money, obviously, the number one. But again, this was in the CBA. This was collectively bargained for by Goodell, so he does have the power. But where was that for you, going back to the CBA on the list coming from the NFLPA?
Well, it wasn't big on the players from a player's perspective, and that's obviously why they didn't fight for it. And it's understandable why, because if despite the narrative you hear in the general public, and you'll see about NFL players getting in trouble, and you constantly hear that again and again and again. The reality is far different in that, NFL players are arrested less than people of their same age in regular society. People don't believe that, but it's true. You can go to the FBI's website and look at the numbers. So, when you're looking at the average player who doesn't get in trouble, and you say to yourself, okay, the NFL commissioner isn't fair to Ray Rice or Adrian Peterson or Greg Hardy in a legal sense, you say, but, I'm not going to strike over that because I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm just going to go about my business and do what I want. So why would I miss a paycheck fighting for somebody who did something that could be deemed awful from a moral standpoint? So that's the hurdle the NFLPA faces. But now they have all these cases come after one after another. Now they've been able to go back to their constituency and say, this is kind of ridiculous. We have to do something. So I believe, when the next CBA is open, and that's not till 2020, I believe, the next commissioner, or if Roger Goodell's still commissioner, no commissioner of this league will ever have this power again because of the way Roger Goodell has abused it.
John McMullen, our Eagles insider, 97.3 ESPN FM. Let me ask you this one on, I guess, more towards Goodell and his standing in the league amongst the owners in the NFL. Is his job in jeopardy? I mean, he bumbled the Ray Rice investigation, now this, but he makes this league billions upon billions of dollars. Is the NFL just kind of kick off the season and shrug their shoulders and go along with the season, and try and forget about this?
Yeah, they are. Goodell has already come out and said he's not going to be at the Thursday night opener. That's a prudent decision because that would create too much controversy.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
And they're not going to try to get a stay to keep the suspension in place. That's a pretty good idea. So at least I give them a hat tip there because they want to get the microscope back on football, and it will when the games start. The problem is when the next crisis comes up, or in the off season when this case continues to go on and through the court system and the suspension of Tom Brady is back in play, then all of this will come up and bubble again. But you mentioned how much money this league makes, and that's true, and that's what has kept him safe to this point. But I maintain that, I don't want to say you or I could do it, but you or I could probably do it. This league is a monster. They don't make this kind of money because of Roger Goodell. They could remove him today and put somebody you've never heard of into that position and move forward unimpeded. I just don't buy that spin from the owners. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, then why is he still employed then, John? Why does he continue to be employed by this league? And, if he continues to be employed by the league, these scandals are going to come up. Why is he still employed?
Well, I don't disagree with the fact that that's why he's employed. That is why. The owners say, this guy's made us a lot of money, and they're being loyal to him. I just think it's a specious way of thinking, because their assumption that Roger Goodell made us this money and nobody else could have, I think is just so off base. It borders on ridiculousness. So until they come to that point and understand that somebody else with credibility, without all this baggage, could do this job, he's going to remain in the position. And I don't understand why the owners have taken that position.
Where for you, John, did Goodell really mishandle this investigation? Because to me, they were kind of proactive in this thing, a lot different than the Ray Rice investigation. They were trying to throw the book at Brady and trying to get ahead of this thing, but they messed up along the way. But where for you, John, did this investigation kind of go sour?
The punishment aspect of it, I had always described it as they turned a misdemeanor into a felony. And if you look at the precedent, which judges are prone to do, judges base every decision on precedent. And if you look back at this league, for instance, one of the NFL's arguments was that partially the suspension was so harsh because Tom Brady did not, help the investigation. Well, they said the same thing about Brett Favre, if you remember the entire Jen Sturger incident when he was with the New York Jets. they charged him for the same reason. He got a fine, no suspension. So that's a precedent in Judge Berman's mind. Similarly, there have been a lot of ball issues that people don't even hear about. There was a kicking ball issue with the New York Jets against the Patriots. There was the San Diego Chargers and Stickum. There was the Minnesota Vikings and heating balls. All these teams got fines. There were no suspensions and certainly no investigations of players. That was another precedent for Judge Berman. So he looked at all this and said, what is the difference here? Why are you being so harsh on Tom Brady? And that was one of the major reasons, along with the fact that he did not allow Jeff Pash, who is the general counsel of the NFL, to be cross-examined by the players. Those were the two main issues that the judge said, this is heavy-handed, this is not the way you do business, and that's why he vacated the suspension.
Were you surprised, John, that the suspension was not cut in half after the appeal? I mean, he gives them the 4-gamer. The Patriots, Bob Kraft goes out there, he accepts the fine, and he accepts the loss of draft picks in kind of good faith in thinking that the NFL would reduce the suspension. Were you surprised that Goodell stood ground and kept that 4-gamer on Brady?
Yeah, I was. I think that was the deal. That was the wink-wink deal, and that's what kind of turned Bob Kraft away from Roger Goodell. The two of those have been very, very close over the years. And the fact that he said if he would accept $1 million fine and the loss of draft picks, that, okay, it's with the knowledge that at least the suspension would be reduced, hopefully to 1 game. And for whatever reason, Goodell didn't agree and didn't go forward with that. And that's when sort of that breakup occurred, and then Kraft went out and insulted Goodell and the league as a whole. And then we got to the point we are, and it's just, it looks bad for the league. And for those, I said for those spiking the football, Patriots fans who think this is, declaring Tom Brady innocent, it does nothing of the sort. It is a direct repudiation of the NFL's policies and procedures. It really has nothing to do with what Tom Brady did or didn't do.
Right. It just has everything to do with how Roger Goodell handles his investigations and how he is judge, jury, and executioner. John McMullen, our Eagles insider, 973ESPN.com. Let's switch gears to Eagles and Jets tonight. Tim Tebow and Matt Barkley. Does it really come down to, John, the Chip Kelly's preference? I mean, if he wants a more conventional quarterback, he keeps Matt Barkley. If he wants a guy who can, be a little bit more versatile and go out there for short yardage situations, he keeps Tim Tebow. Is it just that simple, John?
I think it is. I think that's been the story since day one. What type of player does Chip Kelly want? And as we get closer to this game, I more and more I lean to you just can't keep Tim Tebow on this football team because the fact that he wasn't successful on the 2-point conversions in Green Bay, that's a strike against him. That's supposed to be the strength of his game. And then you think about, whatever. If you're playing the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys and you're down 2 points in the fourth quarter and you need that 2-point conversion, do you really think, putting the football in the hands of Tim Tebow is a better option than having Sam Bradford throw it or DeMarco Murray run it? I just think that's ludicrous thinking. I don't think Tim Tebow's done anything to say he belongs on this football team. And as it gets closer to Saturday and the roster cut deadline, that thought process is just growing and growing for me.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Tebow did go 0 for 2 in those two-point conversion tries on Saturday night. And, with the injury to Cody Parkey, I guess we can expect more 2-point conversion attempts with Tim Tebow out there tonight, John?
Yeah, and if he's successful, I think that could turn the worm a little bit back in his direction, because coming off the 0 for 2 performance against the Packers certainly does not speak well of him. But at the end of the day, I just keep going back to that. It's okay, even if he is successful, even if they run it 4 or 5 times tonight and he succeeds every single time, I go back to that theory I said before. Who would you rather have with their football in in their hand in a key situation. And it could be Bradford, it could be Sanchez, it could be Murray, it could be Matthews, it could be Sproles. Tebow is way down on that list for me. So I don't understand what he's actually bringing to this team and this roster. And the closer we get, I just think it's becoming clearer and clearer that he shouldn't be on this football team.
John McMullen, our Eagles insider, 97.3 ESPN FM. Last one for you, John. Aside from Tebow and Barkley, what other position battles are out there? I mean, you look at maybe offensive line depth-wise, and you look at that safety spot with three guys kind of competing for one spot. What other roster battles should we look for tonight, Eagles-Jets?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The depth on the offensive line is a concern. The safety position, you're going to have to keep four, and I still think they might look at the waiver wire, and somebody from that position could come from another organization. You want to see how Vinny Curry handles his reps at outside linebacker, because he was working hard after practice this week trying to get up to speed there. It's pretty clear that even if Marcus Smith makes this team, the coaching staff has no confidence in him. So even if he gets healthy, I don't think he's going to get any playing time. So he's got to make that switch pretty quickly. And also the nickelback slot, because while we all know Eric Rowe is going to make this football team, he hasn't looked good over the past week or so, and it's going to be very hard for him to get on the field week one. So all of a sudden, you ask yourself, what are you going to do at that nickelback slot? And is it going to be a veteran like E.J. Biggers or a younger guy like Jalen Watkins? So that's also a key positional battle.
All right, John McMullen, our Eagles insider, Eagles-Jets tonight. And I guess look for a story up tomorrow, maybe a 53-man prediction from you, John, coming up tomorrow before the deadline on Saturday?
Well, I think the cuts are going to come pretty quickly. So
okay.
Early this week, I'm going to when we do get to the final 53, I'm going to rate the Eagles players from 1 through 53, from the worst to the best, so people could look forward to that. And also, we're going to start gearing up for the Atlanta Falcons and kind of look at that matchup and how it relates to the Eagles. It's very difficult on the defensive side of the ball because you got to match up with guys like Julio Jones and Roddy White and Matt Ryan throwing the football. But also, the Atlanta offensive line is shaping up as one of the worst in the NFL. So it's going to be an opportunity for guys like, Fletcher Cox and Connor Barwin and Brandon Graham to get off to a good start.
All right, John McMullen, our Eagles insider. Get more of his work at 973ESPN.com. Thank you, John. Enjoy the game tonight.
Hey, thanks, Pete.